Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you are doing amazing. Before we get into today's video, I wanted to pop in and give you a warning that the audio you are about to hear is extremely rough. Unbeknownst to me, I was having mic issues throughout the entire video, and it kind of sounds like I'm talking into a tin can. With that being said, this video was not scripted. I had a few key points I wanted to hit throughout the course of the video, but everything else was said just the way that I was thinking or feeling at the time. And so rather than trying to re-record and either missing some of those points or trying to remember exactly what I said and how I said it and then coming off disingenuous or a little bit robotic, awkward, stilted, I figured I would just put it out as is. I hope that I have done something to this audio to make it a little bit easier on your ears, but I wanted to give you that heads up. Thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and hey, I will see you in there. What's up? I'm Bea, and welcome to my channel where we debunk harmful personal development and religious norms and have occasional live streams for current events. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any of those and you're able to keep up with my content, feel free to subscribe, make sure your notifications are turned on, and hang on for the ride. If you're subscribed already, thank you so much. So today we're going to be talking about Josh Barber from the Dad Challenge podcast. I think this is going to be a bit of a different angle, I guess, than the one that a lot of people have done, but I think it's an important facet to talk about, and I will give full credit. How I got kind of introduced to this concept is through another creator named Pixie Canaday. She did a video on Josh going through the first episode of his Why I'm an Ex-Pastor series, and we're going to get more into that. But the way that she spoke about him and the details that she gave, because I never watched the series before, were very interesting and made me want to learn more. So if you've been on YouTube for a while, especially around the time of the Micah and James Stauffer ordeal, I guess is what we'll call it, you've probably heard of the Dad Challenge podcast if you keep up with commentary channels or mommy vloggers, I guess I should say. You probably have at least heard his name, if not watched at least a few of his videos. And that's kind of the same for me. I've seen a few of his videos. I've heard good things about him from some people, heard some negative things from others, and so I've tried at various points throughout the past year or so to watch certain videos, but they always felt kind of off to me, or they felt like, you know, why is a video really being made about this? I don't quite understand the purpose of this. There was one that I watched where he was going through the child of a family vlogger's Instagram page, and like just everything he said was, this is a ridiculous outfit, this is completely inappropriate, why are you letting your child wear this, why are you putting your child on the internet wearing this? And I get that sometimes in order to call something out, you have to like further expose it, but then at the same time, you're sitting here being like, oh, they're putting their child out for all these creeps to look at. Here's the Instagram. Like, if somebody else is a creep and doesn't know about it, then maybe they find that Instagram through your channel. I don't know. It's a whole thing to process, but that's not the point of today's video. I'm not a huge fan of Josh. I don't necessarily have negative feelings towards him, but I wouldn't say like I'm a member of the Dad Challenge fan group, if you will. However, I've seen a few videos coming up lately from some newer creators who are talking about the hypocrisy of Josh and kind of where they think he's going wrong, how they think he's not actually doing any good. And I think that those are really interesting to take a look at, because Josh likes to talk about how his main focus is to put an end to child exploitation, particularly through the avenue of mommy vloggers and family vloggers, and saying like, you can't use your kid to build a channel, this has got to go, it's got to be done. Totally noble goal to have in life and for your channel. However, the way that he speaks about some of these women is very off-putting, and I think ultimately does a disservice to him, because I've been trying to watch, and especially with the idea of this video coming up, I've been trying to like check in on a few of his videos, and he did one about this woman moving from Hawaii to California. I only watched like the first 5 minutes of it, because the first 5 minutes of it was him just talking smack about her and like making fun of her fake tan. He'll make fun of these women's makeup, their outfits, their husbands. He did a whole reaction to a Love Meg Instagram story talking about their haters, and it was like the most boring thing I have ever seen. So not only do you have, on one hand, the cruelty, which I will call it cruel, like making fun of somebody's makeup, their appearance, their clothes, the things that they like to do that literally impact you in no way possible. I think that's cruel, and I think that that kind of detracts from your message. Who's going to want to listen to you? Josh likes to say, oh, well, if it takes me snarking on them, you know, in this way for them to get it, then that's what I'm going to do, for them to understand where I'm coming from. I don't know. Put yourself in their shoes. Could you be made fun of into stopping doing something that's making you a very nice profit? Or would you just say like, oh, this person's making fun of me, they have nothing valid to say? That's what I would say. And then on the other hand, you have it where he's taking these smaller situations and making a massive deal out of them, and making videos and videos and videos and videos about these really small things that don't matter. And from a content creator perspective, I get it, because the more you post, the more that YouTube is going to kind of push you into that algorithm, and they're going to push you out there. And as a creator, you know the videos that are going to do well before you even put them up. If you have a moderately reliable audience. I will say, when I had 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 subscribers, any video I put out was just like a stab in the dark. It's like, this is what I want to talk about right now. Let's see how it goes. Maybe it got 10 views. Maybe it got 2,000. Like, I just never knew. But at this point, I can tell you, in most cases, whether or not a video is going to be well received, whether or not it's going to get the typical amount of views, or if it's going to get less engagement, less views. You just kind of figure that out over the course of your channel's life, I guess. And so Josh knows that those kinds of videos, the petty ones, the snarky ones making fun of people, are gonna get a reaction. They're going to get views from people, because let's be real, everybody enjoys a little bit of, I don't know, I want to say like lighthearted teasing, lighthearted poking fun. But at this point, I don't really think it's lighthearted. I don't think it's poking fun. I think it's getting high off the fact of how much you hate somebody and justifying it because you think, oh, well, they're a mommy vlogger, so they're trash. And so it's okay for me to make fun of them and for me to revel in other people hating them, which I don't think is right. Oh, the other thing that I will spend a few minutes on. Let's see how many videos he's made about this situation, and you're gonna know as soon as I pop it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 videos in the past week about Gabby Petito. This entire situation is devastating, but it has been very interesting and I suppose encouraging to see the way that so many people have gotten involved and cared about this situation and shared information and wanted to know the truth, especially a lot of people who aren't super into true crime. My mom, not into true crime at all. Like, the most she gets into anything dark like that is like CSI Miami, right? So she's not into it at all, but she texted me the other day and she was like, oh, on Dr. Phil, they're talking about Gabby Petito. This has become a very big thing, kind of like a movement in order to find out what happened and apprehend the person who is responsible, right? So I think more people talking about it, great. Let's like make sure that we keep this energy up for other missing people, other crimes that happen. Let's all come together to share what information we can and get justice for more people, just in the same way that we've banded together for Gabby. But I will say that I think it is a little bit opportunistic to suddenly decide that you're going to do true crime content in a situation like this, where from what I've seen, he hasn't really done a whole lot of true crime content. I don't know if he's done any at all. I suppose you could say that some of the things that he's spoken about could be like crime related or legality related, like talking about the exploitation of kids or Danielle Cohn or accusations made against him by Shannon Rose and Lev Meg. Looking for other stuff, he has a lot of videos. I don't really see much of that on there, and I get it, true crime is a really big genre. Lots of people try their hand at it. If you've been watching me for a long time, you know that I used to do true crime cases, but eventually just decided that that wasn't the direction that my channel was going to go in, and so I stopped. So I'm not here to rag on anybody for doing true crime, especially for the right reasons, for trying to get traction for current cases and find answers for families who so desperately need them. But it does seem very opportunistic to me that this is the case that he chooses to break into the true crime world on. This is the one where he's like, okay, and now I'm going to do true crime 2. I'm going to focus on that 2, and I'm going to make 8 videos in a week about this poor missing girl and just really take advantage of the views I'm going to get from it. The first one is 37,000, 49,000, 80,000, 115,000, 31,000, 57,000, 44,000, 47,000. And it's kind of gross because you can get those kind of views. I haven't watched these videos. I don't plan on it. I don't want to support this. But like, you could get that many views and the amount of money that many views will garner for your channel by literally finding a hot button topic like this and just doing a live stream and going over news articles as they're coming out and like reading them for people, because other people would rather talk about it in a community environment and hear somebody else tell them than go read it for themselves. So it seems very much like he's taking advantage of the situation. If he really does care about true crime and wants to make a positive impact, that's great, but I have my doubts. Anyway, the reason that I wanted to make this video was to talk about Josh's 6-part series, I believe, on why he's an ex-pastor. I watched every episode. It was a lot to process and a lot to take in, and you could tell that he was still kind of processing it. This was a massive thing, what happened. And so I'm not going to go into like a ton of detail about everything he spoke about, because all of the episodes were at least 30 minutes, if not like 45 minutes, an hour. So he starts off by going into his childhood and talking about how rough it was. He had an unstable caretaker, a lot of people coming in and out, a lot of really dark and sad things happened, money struggles, and he just happened to find churches that were his safe space and really great leaders within the churches he went to throughout his childhood and into his adulthood, or like late teens, early adulthood, who really kind of took him under their wing, took care of him, made sure that he was okay, and he was super grateful for that. And hearing that, I'm like, thank God. Like, we hear so many negative things about organized religion, and those are important to talk about, but when you hear somebody saying, like, I was in a really tough place and a religious leader helped me, it's like, we got one good one. Like, thank you. So, hearing that was just really nice that, despite those struggles and despite those difficult things, he did have solace and he did have comfort in somebody. And he goes on to talk about how even though he did have that safe space and he loved going to church so much, he did always kind of feel like an outsider because he wasn't a legacy kid. And I do think that that's a really valid point to talk about. Pretty much, in most churches, you're going to have those kids who are like the insider kids because their parents work at the church, or they've been going to church for so long, or their parents are elders, or they're big donors, like they're big tithers. They have an impact on the church, and so they're very well connected and rooted, and it is hard to kind of infiltrate that group, I think, especially as you get into like junior high and high school. I've been on both ends of that. As I've stated before, both of my parents were pastors, and so I can speak to the end of at the church that they helped plant, being that snotty kid who was a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. You can't tell me what to do. Do you know who my dad is? Like, being a total brat and a total snot. But I've been on that side, and then I've been on the other side where my parents got jobs at a new church, and we moved across town and we went to this church, and my first experience was a girl who had been going there for a very long time and whose mom had been very heavily involved for a very long time, was going for the job that my mom ended up getting. And apparently I had no idea of any of this. I had no idea who this girl was, nothing. But apparently this girl knew who I was and what had happened, and her mom was very upset. And I walked into the junior high service on Sunday, and what they do is they have you like sign in, and somebody's supposed to take you around, show you where everything is. And so the person I signed in with was like, oh, this is so-and-so. She'll go ahead and show you around. And she looked at me and looked at the person who said that and said, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to. And walked away. And so coming in from the outside and trying to find my place within the legacy kids was also an interesting experience. Not a particularly fun one. I can see where Josh was coming from with that. Moving on though, he ends up getting into music because one of the, again, this is very like bird's eye level overview because there's a lot of detail in there, and if you want to hear all about it, you can watch Pixie's series. I think there's only been the one episode. I hope another one comes out soon because I like the way that she did it. Or you can watch Josh's entire series and hear it all in his words. Eventually though, gets into music because the girl that he had a crush on liked all of the worship kit, like the worship leader kids or the band kids at church. Gets into that, gets into a few bands, does some tours, ends up deciding on being a worship pastor. Goes to a big training, learned how to kind of bring worship into the 21st century. So he gets hired at this job and he works at this church for about 2.5 years. Now, the length of time is important because of personal things that were going on in Josh's life. Josh is an adoptive father, and so his kids that he adopted went through a lot before they found that stability with, their forever family with Josh. And so, it takes that time to build connections, build trust, feel comfortable there. His wife got really involved, started working for one of the elders with an outside business, and Josh poured everything into this church. First 2 years, he had great performance reviews, like everything was going so well. People were loving the music. It was just like, wow, what more could you ask for? But there is a downfall. Burnout is a big problem in the church because it's not like a thing where you have your set hours, that's your schedule, that's it. When you're done, clock out, go home, bye. It's separate. It is an all-encompassing part of your life. Burnout is a big problem, and Josh talked about this especially around the holidays. He was like, the holidays were not like the holidays for me because we had these massive sets. We would do these really extravagant, over-the-top services. I was doing 75, 80 hours per week to make sure that we were ready, and I just didn't have adequate help. And so talks about the ways that he asked for help and how he thought he was going to get it, and then he didn't, and just a few other run-ins that he had with leadership there, like they went over budget on a children's build, and the budget was like $300,000. They went $150K over budget. And he was like, how does that happen? What is going on with that? Why aren't we looking into this? And instead of actually looking into it and doing an investigation, they just froze everybody else's budgets to cover the build. And so there was these little things here and there where, he was kind of pushing back on things that he felt he had the right to, and I personally also think that he had the right to. But anyway, so he has all these little things that are kind of happening, and then the very real struggle of, you are expecting so much of me, and it's overextending me, and I've said I need help, I've asked for help, I thought I was going to get it, and when we hired somebody that I helped write the job description for, campus pastor came in and said, actually, she's not working for you, she's going to work for me. And I'm at my limit. Luckily, at that time, his adoption of his boys was finalized. And so in Canada, you get to take this parental leave, which is federally protected. Takes his leave, and the leadership at the church wanted him to come back for these monthly training sessions or improvement sessions. And he said, no, I'm on leave. I'm not doing that. They wanted him to come in for his performance review. He missed the first one because he said that he was on vacation and they knew about it because it was scheduled before he even took his leave, and so he couldn't come. Second one was his fault. But then the third one, when it actually happened, it was not good. You missed your goals this year. You missed deadlines. You've just really just not lived up to our expectations is what it boils down to. And so he felt kind of off about it. He's very confused, and the wheels kind of started turning. And then he decides he's going to come back early from his leave, and he's called into a meeting before he even officially comes back and gets fired. Josh's perception of this situation, because I'm not going to make any allegations I can't back up, is that he got fired for going on parental leave. I listened to the recording because Josh recorded him getting fired because he had a bad feeling about it, which I totally believe in, going with your gut on. They made it sound like they were trying to put words in his mouth, basically, trying to say, like, well, we know you're unhappy here. We know this isn't a good fit. We know you're just so unhappy, and, you know, it's probably time to part ways. And so, like, they wanted him to admit, like, yeah, I am unhappy. Yeah, I do want to go. Yeah, I do want to quit. But he wasn't giving it to him. He's like, no, I'm not unhappy. You know, I need some help. I'm feeling very burnt out, and I just want your help with this stuff. And so it's all back and forth. They end up firing him, and they're willing to say, well, you know, we are willing to kind of put it out there that this was a mutual decision, that there was nothing, there was no moral failing there. It was just a mutual decision. You know, sometimes the expectations and the capabilities don't just really line up, or they outgrow each other, blah, blah, blah. Put out a statement basically saying, we didn't fire him, he quit, or it was a mutually agreed upon thing. But Josh didn't want to do that because obviously he felt that they were firing him illegally. Obviously, the entire situation is incredibly hurtful because of all of the history that you have of his, all of the backstory, like, leading up to it. But just the entire situation is incredibly hurtful because he felt he was fired illegally and unjustly from a job that he liked and a church that he loved. Just feeling that betrayal from somebody who's supposed to be a leader. Not just your manager, but a leader and a spiritual kind of, I don't want to say authority, but somebody who can guide you through really tough moral and spiritual battles, who is wise and in tune with a biblical, I don't want to say biblical, but like a Christ-centered way of living, and this is how they treat you, this is how they act, and full well knowing you can't go back to that church. You can't, because one, the leadership at that church has done an incredibly hurtful thing to you. Two, when you get fired from a church, it puts a certain kind of stain on you. Because again, the church and your personal life are so closely enmeshed. The first thing you think, if it's, you know, we've decided to part ways with this pastor, and you don't get a specific reason, the first thing you're going to think is they had a moral failing. They had an affair. They had an inappropriate relationship with a student. They had inappropriate content on their computer. You are going to think of the most upsetting things, but also the things that come out so often. And so when you just use that ambiguous language of like, oh, we've decided to part ways, which Josh didn't agree with. He wanted them to flat out say that they fired him. It puts a stain on you. It never looks good to get fired from a job, but if you get fired from, I don't know, say you're the manager of a Verizon store and you get fired. Yeah, that probably doesn't look good, but maybe there's a decent explanation that doesn't have to do with your character, you being a bad person. Like, your character is an insanely important thing to uphold and to have other people have faith in when you are a leader at a church. And so if you don't know that reason that pastor's going, immediately you jump to all of these horrible, terrible things that they must have done in their personal life, which means that they can't work at a church anymore. And so another church is really going to have a tough time hiring you. So again, you can't go to a church where the leadership has shown you the true colors like that. And you can't go to a church that has fired you without laying it out clearly for the congregation, because then you walk in and you're going to get those whispers. You're going to get people talking behind your back. You're going to get people making passive aggressive comments to your face, which I don't know what's worse, because then you have to be responsible for how you respond. So maybe it's easier if they just go behind your back, but it's a terrible situation to be in. So you've got to find a different church and find a different job. His entire experience working as a professional in ministry changed the way he felt about churches and organized religion in general, which obviously, how could it not? Throughout the entire series, and especially at the end, there's a lot of talk about how Josh is getting emails and comments from people talking about how impactful it is that he's sharing this, and how they went through something similar, and how This entire thing is just ridiculous and more people need to talk about it. And so he's like, I'm going to use my platform to bring this up, to bring this to light. There's going to be a documentary about this. We are going to talk about this. Doesn't really talk about it on his channel. He has made a few videos with Jordan and McKay about Mormonism. Like, there's a few sporadically coming here and there. But he has a completely separate channel called The Burnout Pastor, which has the ex-pastor series, and pretty sure that's it. I don't want to be misleading. Let's double check here. Because part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and part 6 of his ex-pastor series, and then a different one called The Church is Scared of COVID that was posted a year ago. So you want a separate platform, that's great, but then you don't post any of this. And then on your main channel, where the majority of those videos got the most views, you do like a few here and there, but the majority of your content is mommy vloggers. And again, like, I understand that the trajectory of your content can change. You see what your audience responds to, you see what gives you growth, what gives you results, and you kind of adjust your sales. And there is nothing wrong with that. But let's take it back to the actual content that is coming out, because I don't think any of these videos, or the majority of these videos, are doing anything to actually help kids stop getting exploited. If people like mommy vloggers, they're gonna watch mommy vloggers. If mommy vloggers are getting views, they're gonna keep doing what they are doing. Maybe you're going to change a few people's minds. I mean, how effective is it going to be when you're just sitting there making fun of petty things? You know, again, I get it. Everybody, like, I like a sarcastic comment now and then. Sometimes I'll take, like, a little jab. It's all in good fun, though. But like, when that's the main focus of your content is being snarky, and you do something called Snark Week, and you're not really trying to give, like, practical solutions or call out these really problematic things, how much of a change are you actually making? Because if you want to go for mommy vloggers, there's a lot you can go for. There are really terrible situations that have happened that are worthy of being spoken about. But that's not going to be the situation all the time. Sometimes they're just chilling, hanging out, living their life. Sometimes there are family vloggers who do the most horrific things. And you can talk about it, and you can bring light to those situations and make videos about it, but maybe your audience isn't really interested in that particular family. Like, maybe the parents don't grind the audience's gears the same way somebody else might. And so you have this thing of like, well, I really want to talk about this. This is really important, but the audience isn't responding. What do I do? And it's hard when YouTube is your business and that's the way you make your money, but you also have this moral goal that you're trying to accomplish, right? And I don't want to give the impression that his channel was solely created to expose corruption within organized religion, because it wasn't. He had videos like Taken Parody Take 'em and Lotto Ticket Challenge. We bought $450 worth to see who won the pot, and like other parody joke videos, stuff like that. Before going into Micah Stauffer and James Stauffer and going forward from there. So it's not like that's what he started out as, but it makes me really sad to see this incredible opportunity to make an impact go unfulfilled. I think you can be multi-passionate. I'm not saying his entire channel should just be about exposing organized religion or being a platform for people to share their hurtful experiences within the church, because bringing an end to exploitation of children, especially through family vlogging, is super important. It is a massively important topic. You can do both of those at the same time. And I think Josh especially can, because his heart is, I think, in both of them. I mean, with the Micah Stauffer situation, I hate to keep bringing it up, but he did a lot of content on that family, and I think it's because it struck a chord with him. He's an adoptive father, and so when you see somebody in a similar situation, maybe not super similar, but somebody who's adopted a child who then says, giving it up, and you know that you've also adopted a child, and you're like, how does that happen? How do you justify that? What the heck is going on? That strikes a chord with you. You can be multi-passionate and focus on all of those things, but when you let it slip away, like when you let your heart for those things slip away and get kind of like wrapped up in how to get views, how to get money, how to grow as fast as possible, to reach as many people as possible, you can lose sight of the important things. And I think you can really sully the impact that you could have had if you tried to remain a little bit more true to those passions. Anyway, that is pretty much all that I have to say about this entire thing. Josh's series really resonated with me because I've never worked for a church before, but I can understand the feeling of being so in love with like what you thought you had in the community, that you thought you had, and so on fire for your Savior and wanting to, fulfill what you feel he has called you to do. And in Josh's case, that's being a worship pastor, being a worship leader. You have such a heart for that and such a passion and a love, and you are on fire for it. But then you get confronted with this reality of what you thought you had isn't real. Like the hurt that comes along with loving an organization that has let you down, that has taken the low road, that has been shady, that cannot and will not give you what you want it to. And it's heartbreaking. It's devastating. I feel for Josh in that entire situation, and I hope that he is healing well from that. And again, I guess I'm biased because of what we talk about a lot on this channel, but I would love to see him do more with that and help more people heal and feel seen and heard. That would be really cool. Okay, so I am popping back in here. Originally, I had recorded this video with a short clip of Josh leading worship, and he's doing a Hillsong song at the worship night, and so I just thought it would be a really powerful thing to see. But I uploaded the video, and literally it immediately got claimed by Hillsong, so thank you to Brian Houston for that one. But I had decided to cut it out. I don't have the energy or the desire to fight the claim, so it is what it is. But I would highly recommend going and watching Josh lead worship. It is very shortly after he was fired, and you can still see like it's just a powerful thing. You can still see the passion that he has for it, but you can hear by some of those comments where in the song it says, Lord, you've never failed me yet, and Josh ad-libs, do you believe that tonight? It's just, I would watch it. There's something so life-giving, one, about watching somebody do something that they are incredibly passionate about, and two, I think it is such a good reminder for Josh to go back and watch that, and you can see like this is your lane, this is what you are so good at. And I'm not saying that he has to go back to being a pastor in any way whatsoever, but you see yourself doing something that impacts people and has an influence on their life, and you can watch and feel how much that meant to him. And I think if you were to compare it with the kind of content that he is more often than not creating now, you might find a bit of a disconnect. That's all I had to say about that. Like I said, I'll link the video down below and go watch it if you're interested. I think the mission is something he cares about, but the execution could use a little bit of reconfiguring. So that's all I will say. Please let me know your thoughts on this entire topic down below. I am very interested to hear what you think about it. If you like him, if you dislike him, if you love his approach, if you think it's harmless, if you think it's harmful, all the thoughts, leave them down below. While you're doing that, if you would consider liking this video or subscribing to my channel, that would be incredible. And if you are subscribed already, thank you so much. I am so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out with you, and talk about whatever. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one.